You know, every now and then, you really should just savor it. Savor the moment. These are wild times, and we've got quite a president totally in charge who pulled off something truly magnificent. Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in the second half of September. Here we are in October, and a spectacularly well-qualified judge, now a justice, was sworn in last night. Amy Coney Barrett. This was a moment, and it should be celebrated. We should realize what a couple of things, a major political accomplishment in just 5 weeks, essentially, and also just how good this justice is. And remember, this is kind of what it's all about. When we campaign and we vote for a president, it's not just, who gets on the news every night and who gets to submit the budget. This is really it. Who gets to appoint the judges? Who gets to appoint the justices of the Supreme Court? This is big. And it makes the election even bigger because we know the Democrats, they're thinking about stacking the court if they get into power. But this is one to certainly be savored. And the president has now had the opportunity to do this 3 times. 3 times. We had Gorsuch, we had Kavanaugh, and now Coney Barrett. This is wild. For a not yet one-term president, look back at recent history. Presidents don't get this opportunity very often at all. For Barack Obama, you see these numbers right next to the president's name? Donald Trump, 3 justices so far. Barack Obama, in 2 terms, just 2. George W. Bush, in 2 terms, just 2. Bill Clinton, same thing. George H.W. Bush lucked out 2 in 1 term. Reagan, 4. Jimmy Carter got 0. Gerald Ford, 1. Richard Nixon, in 5.5 years, 4. So again, 3 justices for Donald Trump in less than 4 years. That is totally extraordinary. The media, it's driving them crazy, driving Democrats crazy. So they, for the most part, ignored last night and focused on making you scared.
The explosive COVID surge, even the smallest communities now feeling the impact. Hospitals at the brink, and the new warning, the danger COVID poses to your heart.
Hospitals on the brink. Wow, it does sound awfully scary. But you know what? There is a huge, I think we all know this now, a huge political component to all this. The Democrats, the media, a source they almost all turn to, the previously reputable Johns Hopkins University. They've got this website with, let's hit up that ominous music. Wow, look at this, huh? It looks like war games. All the red. Are those nuclear missiles that have impacted, or no, cases of coronavirus? But again, this is the Johns Hopkins scientific website with the death counts and the case counts. This is custom made really for a media that wants to alarm you. And this got me thinking, why Johns Hopkins? Why would they kind of go overboard like this? Well, here's a little clue. Johns Hopkins, the #1 funder of Johns Hopkins in any university in the history of universities, is Michael Bloomberg, former mayor of New York City, who made a $1.8 billion donation to Johns Hopkins. Of course, Michael Bloomberg, you'll remember, he ran for president. Recently, he pledged to spend $100 million to beat Donald Trump just in Florida, in addition to the money he's spending all over the place. So this guy is the #1 benefactor of Johns Hopkins University. And, of course, he is a total Trump hater going back many years.
I'm a New Yorker, and I know a con when I see one.
Isn't that something, huh? He is funding Johns Hopkins. We know, quite frankly, the pollsters tell us that the public, well, COVID is not the president's strongest issue right now. It's not, because the media, they've been beating this drum that the president has not been out front. Now, they're wrong and they're unfair because they're praising Fauci, Dr. Fauci, all the time. Have you noticed that? Dr. Fauci still can do no wrong. Joe Biden says, I'll listen to Fauci. I will listen to everything Fauci says. Well, in the initial stages of the COVID crisis, guess what? Donald Trump was listening to everything that Dr. Fauci said. And when the president would say things like, yeah, I think this thing might just blow away, guess what? He was getting it from Dr. Fauci. Let's go through some of the statements that he made, some on this show, some on others. Doctor?
I think if you're a healthy young person, that there is no reason if you want to go on a cruise ship, to go on a cruise ship. Personally, I would never go on a cruise ship because I don't like cruises.
Isn't that cute? This is how he won over the media, by the way, okay? But there he is saying in March that you can go on a cruise. Not his thing, a cruise, but if you want to go on a cruise and you're not a senior citizen, have at it. Pretty interesting, right? We don't do that right now. In fact, there may never be a cruise industry again. What else did Dr. Fauci say throughout the COVID crisis?
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
You're sure of it? Because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often, there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask, and they keep touching their face.
Isn't that interesting? And by the way, you never hear about this. Touching the face is a problem. Can get into your eyes, and that's a big deal. You never hear about it. All you hear from the mask police are, wear a damn mask. So you see that Dr. Fauci has been all over the place, and including on this show. Manageable numbers. Bottom line, we don't have to worry about this one, right?
Well, obviously you need to take it seriously and do the kinds of things that the CDC and the Department of Homeland Security are doing. But this is not a major threat for the people in the United States, and this is not something that the citizens of the United States right now should be worried about.
He was saying the same thing to the president at that time. And by the way, what was the CDC and the Department of Homeland Security doing and saying back then? All they were doing was taking the temperature of people coming back from Wuhan, China, into certain airports in the United States. That's pretty much it. And he was against the flat-out ban that the president implemented about 9 or so days after that. Meanwhile, Joe Biden, his calling card on COVID is, I would listen to Dr. Fauci. I would listen to Dr. Fauci. The president used to listen to Dr. Fauci. No, not so much. Vice President Biden also says he's come up with a plan. He has a plan. Yeah, he alone in that basement, he has a plan. And sooner or later, he'll let us all know about it. When you start hearing about the plan, actually sounds kind of like what we've been doing all along. That's a bit of a problem. But it doesn't surprise me because Joe Biden, he's been caught in lies. I think he's still lying. In fact, his entire campaign, his entire reason for running for president is based on a lie.
He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides?
And it was at that moment in the wake of Charlottesville that Biden says he knew he had to run for president. Big problems with that story, very big problems. Number one, the president always made it clear that he condemned neo-Nazis and white supremacists. Yes, fine people on both sides. There are fine people who wanted to preserve Confederate heritage, and there were very fine people who thought that Confederate heritage was offensive. The president allowed for that, but he made it quite clear who he wasn't talking about.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
See, you heard it right there. And there are people who have never, ever seen the second part of that soundbite. You could watch the network news for the rest of your life, and they'll never play it for you. So dishonest on their part and on Joe's part, or maybe Joe just didn't hear it. I'm not sure. I do know this. He's a phony. He's been passing himself off as some sort of middle-class guy, the whole Scranton routine. Saw something the other day, just watching him speak and speak and speak, and I'm like, you know, I used to work in Bloomingdale's. I did. And I kind of know a few things about clothes. And the more I looked at his jacket, I realized that sweater on the inside is no ordinary sweater. It actually is connected to the jacket. And that told me it's a Corneliani. Now, Corneliani, and that's the logo right there on the zipper, that is very, very high-end. So that sports coat, he didn't buy it from Dillard's. He didn't buy it from Brooks Brothers. He got it maybe from Neiman Marcus. Take a look at this. I found it online right here. This is the, it's called the Men's Knit Prince of Wales Blazer, huh? And you can have one just like it for $1,400. That's a lot for a blazer, isn't it? For middle-class Scranton Joe? I think it is. But Joe has developed pretty expensive tastes because he's been around rich people for a long time. He's been in power for a very long time. And when you're around rich people and you have some power, you know what? You start to acquire these tastes. And that's where I think they went wrong. There is a lot to this New York Post story. It broke, what, now 2 weeks ago? The hard drive on Hunter Biden's computer. Here's why I give it a lot of credence, why I believe the New York Post story, because the Bidens have not denied it. They've been very, very careful in what they're saying about this. I think they know that's Hunter Biden's hard drive. I mean, Russian collusion, give me a break. If you talk to that guy at the store and the emails and the FBI receipt, they got caught here. So they're being very, very careful in what they deny so they don't have to lie. It's a very old Washington trick. If you tell the truth carefully enough, you never have to lie. Now, the key thing here for me, forget about the business arrangements between Joe and China that may or may not have happened. One thing unquestionably seems to have happened here, a meeting between Vice President Biden and the #3 Burisma official, a meeting set up and arranged by Hunter Biden. They're still not denying that. They're very, very careful. They say no record on his official schedule. What about after hours? What about over lunch? What about at night, huh? They're not going there. And I think, tragically, the media, they're not pursuing this story. They're not. They're trying to protect him. They feel guilty for how they treated Hillary back in 2016. So this time they're going to give him a great big pass, which is just terrible, because I know some of them in the media realize that Joe has very big problems telling the truth. There was a time when the media was not afraid to call him out on his lies. Like the first time he ran for president, it was an utter disaster.
What law school did you attend, and where did you place in that class? And the other question is, could you quickly, I think
I probably have a much higher IQ than you do, I suspect. I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. In the first year in law school, I decided I didn't want to be in law school and ended up in the bottom 2/3 of my class, and then decided I wanted to stay, went back to law school, and in fact ended up in the top half of my class. I won the International Moot Court competition. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only need 123 credits, and I'd be delighted to sit down and compare my IQ to yours if you'd like, Frank.
Even if all that stuff was true, which it wasn't, what an arrogant jerk. Who talks like that? But it makes it worse because none of that stuff was true. And back then, the media, they weren't afraid.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
I know I played that before, but it's extraordinary. He's 46 years old, lying through his teeth in front of people with cameras rolling, and he thought he could get away with it. There's something wrong with him. I'm sorry. There's something seriously wrong with this guy, and could very well be a corrupt politician. In the meantime, they lie about Donald Trump. They cover up for his opponent. But there's one thing they cannot stop Donald Trump from doing. They can't take this away from him, his work ethic. Out there on the campaign trail, 3 rallies, different states today? Watch this.
Now I've got to say, I'm working my ass off here. This is Sleepy Joe. The guy goes to his basement. He's got another lid. You know, he goes to the basement. The lid, right? That's the garbage can. They put a lid on you.
Yesterday, I called the lid a coffin, but I think garbage can works even better. Hillary made the same mistake, remember? She kind of coasted into Election Day, and we know what happened then. I think the same thing's going to happen this time.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.